My name's Jane, and I'm working at the Shrine of Our Lady of Walsingham. Walsingham, if you don't know, is a tiny little village in the middle of nowhere in Norfolk. But as you'll find out, there's been some quite amazing things happen here over the years. So this evening, we're going to consider the history of Walsingham, think about how that links with pilgrimage today, a little bit about the Anglo-Catholic theological underpinning of the shrine, and also at the end just introduce some ways in which the shrine education team can support learning in school and at the shrine. So I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. So the Walsingham story, and actually the story of Christianity, starts here. Now this is our beautiful altar of the Annunciation. And of course, the Annunciation is where Angel Gabriel came to Mary and asked her if she would be the mother of Jesus. And Mary said yes. And the really important thing about this story is that Mary did say yes. She could quite easily have said no or go away. And I'm sure she was quite startled by the angel coming to see her, but she did say yes. So in terms of timing, that happened round about the year 1 BC. We then skip on in the story to the year 1061. Now, at that point, Walsingham was a bustling little market village on the road between Norwich and King's Lynn. And not an awful lot happened. It was just a normal place. Lady Richeldis de Faverges lived there, and she was a very devout and pious woman who was dedicated to the example of Mary having said yes. Now, Lady Richeldis one night had a vision, and in that vision, Mary came to her and took her to the house in Nazareth, where Mary had been asked to be Jesus's mother. And Mary asked Lady Richeldis to build a copy of that holy house in Walsingham. And what was really remarkable was that she gave the dimensions of the house to Lady Richeldis, and also told her that she needed to build near water. Now this vision happened twice more, so it happened 3 times in total. After which I like to imagine that Lady Richeldis, although being quite startled, thought, well, after 3 visions, I really ought to be doing something about this. So she gathered together the builders and the materials, and there were 2 possible sites for the holy house to be built on. Now, there's quite a few different versions of the legend, but one version is that there was a fall of dew, and there were 2 areas that were still dry. So Lady Richeldis took that as a sign that one of those areas was to be where the holy house was to be built. So she chose one, and they started to build, but everything went wrong. It just wouldn't stay up, it wouldn't be built, the materials were not good, and it just wouldn't happen. So Richeldis spent a night in prayer, and during that time she asked Mary for her help in building the holy house, and for a sign to show what was going wrong and where it should be built. In the morning, the holy house had been built. On the other site, it was in the wrong place, and it said that angels brought the holy house and built it in the night. So this illustration at the bottom, I'm hoping you can see the turquoise circle, but this illustration comes from a 1931 guide to the shrine, just illustrating those angels bringing the holy house to Walsingham. A statue of Mary with Jesus was put into that little wooden holy house, And people started coming to Walsingham. And they came to Walsingham particularly because it's a place where Mary had appeared to Lady Richeldes, and so it's seen as being holy ground. So over the years, an abbey was built to sort of service all the pilgrims who came to visit. The Holy House was within this stone building here. So the Holy House, made of wood, was tiny inside a stone building to protect it. And over about the course of the 200 years, this abbey complex was built up. Now, I just want to point out to you this arch right at the very end, and the fact that this arch is about half the size of the central tower. And that's important in a moment when you see some of the remains that are left. Now, some of the reasons people would come on pilgrimage were for prayerful intentions, for healing of illness was seen in those days as a punishment from God. And so coming on pilgrimage was a way of atoning for those sins and trying to make good with God. The monks at the abbey were also very good herbalists. And so they were able to help with people who were unwell with herbs and with some sorts of cures. It was obviously, there's no doctors or hospitals at the time. Other reasons for coming of fellowship and a sacred journey made once in a lifetime, which was very important in medieval times, to go to a place of pilgrimage in that time. Now, the Holy House, we know, was decorated and had jewels in it. It was lit by candlelight, and the statue was in there. Now, we know this because we have evidence from Erasmus, who visited the shrine at the beginning of the 16th century. And he wrote a fairly skeptical piece about Walsingham. He described what he could see, but he wasn't convinced that any of the cures and miracles that were ascribed to Walsingham were actually happening. But we do have that as evidence of what it may have looked like in those days. The wells were very important. Now, I said earlier that the Holy House had to be built near water. Another version of the legend is that when the Lady Richeldes built the Holy House, a spring sprang up at her feet, and the wells are full of holy water, being in the holy ground that Mary had trodden on when she came to Lady Richeldes in the vision. And so people would come for sprinkling, and I'll talk a little bit more about sprinkling later on. They might take some of the water home in an ampulla. They might bathe in the water or drink the water as a way of trying to gain some sort of healing. Preparations for pilgrimage in those times. This is one of the things that we do with our younger visitors. We'll go through some of the things that the pilgrims would have needed to take with them. So food, water, a cloak and hat, which doubled up as a sleeping bag, a staff, because it was very dangerous to go on pilgrimage, shoes or scripts, a hat, candles, rosary, and a will. Now, it's unusual, really, to have a will, but it was very, very dangerous to go on pilgrimage. And in order to be released to go on pilgrimage, pilgrim had to get permission from their local bishop. The bishop would give permission. A will would be written saying what would happen to all the property, and actually to wives if the men didn't come back. And then the pilgrim would be able to go off on their journey. Proof was needed by the bishops that they had actually been on pilgrimage, and so it was common to pick up a pilgrim badge at Walsingham to be able to take back and to prove that they had actually been to Walsingham and visited there. So pilgrimage went on at Walsingham from 1061 up until 1536. And this, of course, was the time of King Henry VIII. Now, we know, again, from documentation that King Henry VIII visited Walsingham, and he visited Walsingham to pray for a male heir. Of course, that was not forthcoming. And King Henry VIII, who was Roman Catholic at the time, as was the country, went to the Pope and said, I would like to divorce my wife because she hasn't given me a son. The Pope refused the permission to do this. Henry VIII, not want to be thwarted, said, okay, I'm going to break with Rome. I'm going to become the head of the church, which means that I can make my own rules. And of course, we then know of him divorcing his first wife and marrying his second. As part of that, there was the dissolution of the monasteries, where soldiers went out from Henry VIII and they destroyed the monasteries. They took the wealth back to Henry VIII, who used it to fund his rather lavish lifestyle. And Walsingham, even though Henry VIII had been to pray at Walsingham and had given money for stained glass windows, the abbey was destroyed. The only bit that's left now is this arch, and you can just see at the bottom the for scale, the children and the teachers. And if you imagine this arch and then the central tower was twice as big as that arch, you get some idea of the scale of the place. It's been really interesting this year with the lack of rain, that the grass has died back in the abbey grounds, and we've been able to see the outlines of the abbey, and we've been able to show the children exactly where things used to be. So 1536, pilgrimage to Walsingham ceased. There was nothing to come and see anymore. There was no reason to come, and Catholicism was not something that was promoted greatly, not all the time, but throughout the intervening years. So we then skip on in our story about 400 years to the year 1921. And in 1921, a vicar called Father Hope Patton was appointed as rector of St Mary's Parish Church in Walsingham. Now, Father Patton was a devotee of Mary and had made a study of what had happened at Walsingham and the history. And he was determined to bring what pilgrimage back to Walsingham. In 1922, he restored an image of Mary with Jesus to the church. The original image was taken by King Henry VIII's soldiers to London and burned. We know what that original image must have looked like because on a wax seal, which is one of the few things that actually remain from the abbey, there is the image of Our Lady of Walsingham with Jesus. And so he used that to have a statue made. And that statue was restored to the church in 1922 in July. So exactly 100 years ago, we've been celebrating our Jubilee this year. The bishop of the time, Bishop of Norwich, was not particularly enthralled about this. And he ordered Father Patton that he needed to take the image of Mary out of the parish church. Father Patton was quite a stubborn man, refused. There's a lot of correspondence went backwards and forwards between them. And in the end, Father Hope Patton agreed to take the image out of the church, but he built the shrine. And in 1931, the image of Our Lady of Walsingham was paraded round the streets of Walsingham through to the newly opened shrine. And since then, pilgrimage has started up again. So right from 1922, when the image of Mary came back to the church, people have been coming to Walsingham to visit and to pray, and also for healing. Now, this is aerial view of the shrine church. You can see by the change of colours in the tiles, this bit on the end, on the right-hand end, was the original part of the shrine, and then extra bits have been added on over the years. And the shrine itself is set in some beautiful grounds, which are quiet and contemplative grounds. And one of the things that pilgrims will do when they come to Walsingham is to walk the Stations of the Cross. We have 15 Stations of the Cross at Walsingham, not the normal 14. And these penthouses hold the images of the final hours of Jesus, the story of the final hours of Jesus. And pilgrims will walk those. And at each one, there will be a short Bible reading, a meditation and prayers. And it's traditional for pilgrims to sing as they process from one to the other. This one here is station 12, I believe, yes, station 12 on Calvary Hill, which is symbolic of when Jesus was crucified. And the 15th station is actually a resurrection station. So that's dedicated to one of the carillonneurs who played the carillon at the church. Inside the shrine, Father Hope Patton had a holy house built. So this is a copy of the house in Nazareth where Mary was asked to be Jesus's mother. And it's a wonderful place to be. It's a very calm, very still place. It's tiny. It was built to the same dimensions as the Holy House in the Abbey grounds. And I like to tell the children to look up, because the black of the ceiling is the soot from millions of candles that have burned over the years, and the prayers that have gone up from those candles. You can see here the image of Our Lady of Walsingham, which was brought from the parish church. It was a medieval custom to dress up statues to show that they were particularly important. And so the statue has a mantle on. It changes, the colour is changed depending on the time of the church's year. I did have one young lady ask me, does it change by magic? And I had to tell her that no, we do have sacristans who come and change it. But the statue also has a gold crown, which is symbolic of Mary as being Queen of Heaven. And in the canopy above, you can just see the picture of Mary being crowned Queen of Heaven by Jesus. Incidentally, there's one of these candles here is for the monarch, and that has been burning at Walsingham, started right back in medieval times, that a candle should be burning for the current monarch. This is the inside of the main nave. When we have school groups come round, we always take them round the Shrine Church and spend time in the Holy House. The children have the opportunity to light candles if they wish. And we talk to them about what a church is like and why there's an altar, or two altars in this case. The Paschal candle, why that's there. The tabernacle is particularly important in this church, as holding the Blessed Sacrament. And we talk about the different chapels. There are 15 different chapels around the perimeter of the shrine, and each one is dedicated to a different saint, as well as to a mystery of the Rosary. So there's a lot of symbolism and a lot of artwork and things to look at within the Shrine Church. So just a little bit about the theology of pilgrimage. A quotation there from the Bible from Luke chapter 2, about when Mary and Joseph took Jesus and they went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. So pilgrimage is something that was happening before Jesus was born, and something which Mary and Joseph would have been quite used to, to going on pilgrimage to various places. The shrine itself is Anglo-Catholic in tradition. That means when you come to the shrine, what you will see, a lot of the practices are Catholic, but we look to the monarch in England as the head of the church, not the Pope. So that's the difference between Roman Catholicism and Anglo-Catholicism. But many of the practices are the same. There's veneration of Mary as an example. Now, we make it very clear to the children that when people come, they're not praying to Mary and they're not praying to a statue. What people are doing when they go into the Holy House and they look at the image of Mary with Jesus is using that to help them to ask Mary for her intercession, for her prayers. So it's definitely not idolatry, it's not worshipping a statue, it's a prayer aid to be able to look at that statue and to be able to use that to help with prayer. And pilgrimage is still a holy journey. It's for God and to God, and that's the reason people will undertake those journeys. It's a lot easier these days. People will come by public transport or car, but some people will still walk. My brother actually walked to Walsingham from Southend in Essex over the course of 8 days as a pilgrimage. So modern pilgrimage, well, there are very strong links with ancient pilgrimage. You still need food, water, clothes and transport. It's still a special journey, spiritual journey and physical journey. There's still healing ministries, so particularly sprinkling, but also laying on of hands, anointing, and the sacrament of confession as well. And lighting candles, so private prayer, corporate prayer, lighting a candle as a symbol of your prayer going up to heaven and the light of that prayer remaining. And while the candle is lit, it's believed that those prayers are all going up to God. So a modern pilgrimage might look something like this. So it'd be a first visit to the Holy House. And that is where we started at the altar of the Annunciation. Pilgrims will start at that altar, which is the first one you see when you come in the main doors of the shrine, and then process round to the Holy House. Stations of the Cross, walking those and praying those together. Mass or Holy Communion services. Rosary and shrine prayers. So every evening of every day of the year, there are shrine prayers. People will leave prayer intentions in the shrine, and also there's an ability to leave those online now. And all of those people are prayed for at shrine prayers, and it takes the form of the rosary. So counting round on the rosary beads, using that to help pray for those people. Sprinkling, a last visit to the Holy House. And really importantly as well, fellowship. So meeting other pilgrims, spending time with pilgrims that you've come with. Residential and day pilgrims may eat together. There's a big refectory where we share varying qualities of meals. And there is a cafe bar as well now as underneath the refectory. So there's plenty of opportunity for people to meet and to talk to each other. Sprinkling is something which has been happening at Walsingham right since medieval times. And aside from adjustments made for COVID, it's happened in exactly the same way ever since. So the water from the well is brought up and is given to pilgrims in 3 different ways. Now, the well that we use today was found when the foundations for the new shrine were being dug, and we know it's a Saxon well because of the rubbish that was in that well. So when it was all dug out, there were Saxon shoes and all sorts found in there. But the water ran pure and clear and has been used since 1931 in the sprinkling service. So it's given to pilgrims in three ways. Firstly, as a drink. So the symbolism being that it's bountiful, water's bountiful and refreshing, key component of the body, life-giving, and just as God is life-giving as well. The second way that water is given is as a sign of a cross drawn in water on the pilgrim's forehead. And that's a reminder of baptismal vows, Jesus' sacrifice and Jesus. And the third way is water that's poured into the pilgrim's hands. And that's reminiscent of the Holy Spirit, and letting the water go through fingers is symbolic of the Holy Spirit, and not being able to sort of catch that, knowing that that's there, but not being able to catch it. And while that's being done, a blessing or a prayer is said to the pilgrim. And it goes, may Almighty God, at the intercession of Our Lady of Walsingham, grant you health and peace. Now, people, as I say, have been doing this for many, many hundreds of years. In the 1920s, before the modern shrine was built, these were the original wells over at the Abbey. So this is the bath, and then the wells there. So right in the 1920s, sprinkling started again when Father Hope Patton came to Walsingham, and they used those original wells. I would not want to use those original wells now, because the river has diverted its course and doesn't flow through them, so they're a bit stagnant. And one of the joys of taking the children in there is that there's quite often frogs, which they love spotting. But as I say, it's been going on for many years. So when the children come, there's the opportunity, if they wish, to experience the service of sprinkling. And we tell them that they're part of a long line of pilgrims, a long journey, stretching right back through the ages and stretching forward as well. Now, reasons for taking the water are for healing. Now, it's said that everyone who comes to Walsingham seeking healing will find healing in some way. It may not be in the way that you expect, but in some way. Now, there's a story, there's many stories of healings. The one we tend to tell the children is of Andrea. Andrea was a young girl of about 8 or 9 years old, and one day she was knocked over outside her school, and she was in a coma. She wasn't expected to survive. People gathered together and prayed for Andrea, and somebody came to Walsingham, and on Andrea's behalf they went to sprinkling and took the water for her, and they prayed for her in the Holy House. The next day, Andrea woke up from her coma. She was able, when she woke up, to tell what Walsingham was like. Now, she'd never been to Walsingham, but something miraculous had happened, and she was able to describe exactly what it looked like. And until very recently, she would come to the shrine in thanks for healing, as it says on the plaque, for brain damage. Lots of these little plaques live round the doors, the main doors to the shrine. So there's hundreds of them giving thanks for healing, or thanks for a life well lived, all sorts of different things. And I was privileged recently to be able to have a look through some of the letters from pilgrims detailing some of the healings that they have experienced. And there was one gentleman whose story just stuck with me, and he had a lot of problems with pain in his feet. He went to sprinkling, and then when the water was poured into his hands, he poured the water onto his feet, and he felt heat through his shoes, like the water was hot. And he reports he didn't remember going back to his place to pray, but he did. And at the end of the service, he walked out and was halfway to the refectory when he realised that he hadn't got his sticks and he was walking without pain. The next day, he took his stick with him just in case, but walked the Holy Mile up to the Roman Catholic Shrine. And a lovely bit in the letter says he thinks that his stick is probably still at the Roman Catholic Shrine because he was able to walk with no pain. And 6 months later, when he was writing the letter, he was still pain-free. So just to, coming to the end, these are some of the special pilgrimages that we have at the shrine. So the national is probably the biggest. We have 3,000 to 4,000 people coming every year. So we have service outside in the Abbey grounds. And the image of Our Lady is brought out from the Holy House and is brought into the Abbey grounds and then paraded around the streets of Walsingham while people are praying and singing. So as you can see, the image of Our Lady is on a howdah and decorated. And we do have people who come along who protest, who think that it is idolatry and that it is worshipping a statue. As I said earlier, it really isn't. It's just, it is a helpful prayer aid to have that image there. The youth pilgrimage, which is for 11 to 18-year-olds, and that happens every August for a week. It's camping on a field. We have mass in the big top, and the hub is the social space with the tuck shop and games and things. There's services in the shrine itself, as well as in the big top. And we have a lot of fun. So there's one afternoon where we have games and all sorts of things coming in and craft activities. Again, it's that fellowship and building the links between the young people. We have the family pilgrimage. Now, this is young William. William was our youngest ever verger. He was 3 years old, has his very own verging pole, and was able to lead the priests in and out of our services on his own with great aplomb. So the family pilgrimage, as I suggest, is for families. We've just had that. That's in October half term each year. It was Heavenly Treasure this year, so which is why the shrine's decorated as it is. And it consists of various services, as well as prayer spaces, and again, time for crafting and for meeting others. And then we also have the children's pilgrimage, which is for 7 to 11-year-olds who tend to come with their youth leaders. And we do the Holy Mile walk from the Roman Catholic Shrine, various services and fun times as well. And that's a weekend, usually in March. So these are some of the things that the shrine can offer to schools or groups when they come to visit. So we can cater for residential or day groups. We will always visit the shrine and the Holy House, and sprinkling is an option if requested. We can visit the Abbey to see where the original Holy House was, and the Lonely Arch, which is the bit that's left. We're very lucky in Walsingham to have 3 different churches. We have a Methodist church, Roman Catholic church, and an Orthodox church. So it's possible to visit all 3 churches as well as the shrine to see 4 different styles of architecture, as well as talking about 4 different ways of worshipping and the similarities and differences between them. We've developed some new offerings as well. We're thinking about meeting Jesus, and that's for Key Stage 1, and a digging deeper meeting Jesus for Key Stage 2. There's exploring the Holy Trinity with Key Stage 3. We don't say that we've got the answers to that. It is an exploration. We have Christmas and Easter programs, spirituality, ethics. So often schools will ask if they can have a debate with a nun or a member of the clergy. And we will work with schools to create bespoke programs as well, depending on the curriculum that they're following or the exam board. And then remotely, we can offer on-site visits to your school by one of our education team. There's lots of resources on our website, including a virtual tour and video introductions to the shrine. We're developing Teams or Zoom question and answers and storytelling with a member of our team. And we can work with you to create some bespoke online packages and resources. We realise that not everyone can get to Walsingham for a visit, but we're keen to come out to you either virtually or physically. So that's the end of the presentation. These are two of the documents that are on the website. So we've got the actual visits details here and information for planning. And this is the web link at the bottom for being able to find those on our website. So thank you.